Jayson, we'll start things off, as always, with your fact of the week.
Well, Connor, we have something cool happening in Game 2 of this doubleheader tonight because it's something we have not seen in our town in over 40 years. Zach Wheeler is pitching against Chris Sale. Connor, what's their connection?
Well,
you
they
know
were
the answer?
1-2 in last year's NL Cy Young voting.
Yeah, that is right. So, I got curious about how long it had been since any Phillies starter who finished 1 or 2 in the previous year's Cy Young election had faced the other guy in the top 2. And so these two guys did pitch against each other last month in Atlanta, but the last time we saw this in Philadelphia was June 29th, 1983. That was Steve Carlton, he was the reigning Cy Young, and he pitched against Steve Rogers, who had finished second the year before. It was so long ago. Pete Rose went 1 for 4 in that game, but Carlton gave up 3 homers, huge bomb to Andre Dawson late in the game, so they lost. And that actually leads to another crazy stat. This will be the 5th time in the history of the Cy Young Award that we've had a Philly starter get involved in one of these games, 1 versus 2, either here or on the road. The Phillies have lost all of the previous 4.
Uh-oh.
So is tonight the night that changes? Stay tuned, boys.
Jayson, the Phillies hold on and win a nail-biter. What were some of your most prominent takeaways from this one?
Well, the good news, Rafael Marchand. We had a Rafael Marchand sighting and another Schwarber. That's 39 home runs by Kyle Schwarber since he signed here, of 430 feet or longer, boys. And nobody else on the team has more than 11. Bryce has 11. Schwarber has 39. Try to take that in. But I guess the other big picture takeaway is this game was just another reminder that fixing this bullpen feels like it's going to be the story of July. Am I right? Jordan Romano gets it done. Matt Strom is interesting to me. He's been in the circle of trust here almost since the minute he arrived. And look, with Jose Alvarado out, he's not going anywhere. He has to stay in that circle. But this year, first 12 appearances, had a 1.59 ERA. Since then, it is 6 in his last 14 appearances. He just doesn't seem like he has the same finish or the same command. And that showed up again today.
Yeah, it certainly did, and the bullpen has been a focus all year. Now, we want to talk about something that's been a focus this week. We've been doing the plunking conversation since Bryce Harper was hit. And you know as well as anybody, Jayson, the intentional hitting of batters as retaliation has kind of left the game. What are your thoughts on the Phillies not retaliating and just that trend throughout baseball in the current age?
Yeah, you just said it. I know everybody wants to retaliate, and we just don't live on that planet anymore. Look, I talked to Spencer Strider after that game the other night, and he didn't want to hit Bryce. He said it himself. He's not a sociopath. What a quote. He didn't want to see one of the best players in baseball writhing in pain because of him. So I guess I should ask you guys, the reason to retaliate and drill Ronald Acuna Jr. or Matt Olson would be what? Because we don't like Spencer Strider here. We love to boo Spencer Strider. So let's throw a baseball 95 miles an hour at somebody and inflict a little pain from them.
Yeah, the prevailing opinion was protecting throwing inside on Bryce Harper because he was hit twice in that athletic series. So just trying to stop opposition from throwing in on him. Yeah,
and that's not going to work. My whole thing about retaliation is it's one thing if a guy gets hit and you can tell it's on purpose. Where is that evidence? Spencer Strider pitches inside. He had real problems throwing strikes the other night. Bryce is a guy who dives in against right-handers. And, I was there. It was hard to watch, but you started the question this way. Retaliation just isn't part of the culture of the sport anymore. And I would be surprised if you saw any retaliation from Zach Wheeler tonight.
We're speaking with Jayson Stark on the Comcast Business Hotline. Does just a tremendous job. Jayson, JT Realmuto has been one of the quieter bats this season, especially relative to his body of work with the Phillies. In your opinion, how does his future look with the organization?
Andrew, I personally think that JT's future is as interesting as Kyle Schwarber's future. We were talking about Rafael Marchand. Let's think about one of the big Phillies storylines that has totally evaporated. And that was the one about how JT has to catch fewer games this year. Can't let that guy catch 130 games. Shouldn't even let him catch 120. How's that going? He's on pace to start 135. And even in a year when I think, as you just said, he has scuffled with the bat more than at any time that we've seen. So if they're still running him out there almost every day, what's that telling us? Here's what it's telling me. The Phillies are addicted to JT catching this staff, that they lean on him defensively in a way that not many teams do anymore. He is so involved in game planning and connecting with a group of veteran pitchers who, it just feels like they literally depend on him to get them through the game. So how prepared is this front office to move on from that? I think not very. So the question is, what are you willing to pay him, and for how long? I got curious. I went back 5 years. I could not find a single significant multi-year contract for any free agent catcher his age, and he'll be going into his age 35 season next year. Like Travis d'Arnaud was kind of a comp. He just got 2 years and a total of $12 million from the Angels. That was the biggest deal I could find for somebody that age. So I don't know. Does 2 years, $25 million get this done? It might. I don't know. I could be wrong. We could all be wrong. I can tell you, I was talking to the manager of one team, contending team, that's been dying for a frontline catcher. And when I mentioned to him that JT was a free agent, he was practically drooling about everything about him, including what kind of shape he keeps himself in. So, I don't know. My guess is that much like Schwarber, the Phillies find a way to bring him back here. The other side of that, though, is everybody seems to want them to change the lineup, right, and change the mix. And if there's no parade here, I'm sure you'll hear a lot more of that. But is JT the place to make that stand? I'm going to guess no.
I can't wait to see the 2035 Phils still trotting out the same lineup that they do today. But that's kind of what it feels like, right, Jayson?
Yeah, you say in theory you want to move on, but sometimes it's hard to move on from people when you know what they're all about and you know they're winning players.
Parting is such sweet sorrow. Now, what's not sorrow is the Phillies' record right now. And at 36-19 with the Game 1 win in the doubleheader, they have by percentage the best record in baseball. But last year, we saw a red-hot start, and they cooled off. So what are you seeing this year that's potentially sustainable more than last season?
It kind of, I've said this before, that this team is built to win the World Series. I have not changed my mind on that, but as you were just saying, we thought the same thing last year. I think we mentioned this last week. This is the first time in the 162 game schedule era that they've had a record this good 2 years in a row, a third of the way through the season. And what's interesting is the teams are not the same, even though so much of the personnel is the same. I don't know if you want to go through it, one piece of the team at a time, but the rotation is the biggest reason to think they're different, they're better. This rotation is much better than last year. It's the strength of this team. It's more overpowering if they stay healthy than any of their previous playoff rotations. It's starting to remind me of 2011, honestly. So that's a reason to think this team can't win. But then there's bullpen, clearly not as good as last year, not as deep, not as dependable. Dave has to upgrade this, and he knows it. Then the offense is interesting because the numbers are so similar to last year this time. It's wild to look at. But the at-bats have been better, so there's that. But this team has hit fewer balls over the fence. I think that's something to watch. A lot of it can be explained by the fact that Bryce really hasn't gotten hot yet in terms of hitting the ball hard in the air. So I feel like there's still upside in the offense. They're going to need to score against good pitching in October. And so let's watch where this goes over the next couple months. And then, one final thing is the National League is so loaded. The Dodgers, the Cubs, the Mets, the Padres feel like they're more formidable than any team in the American League. One of the questions I have 2 months in, and especially again this week, are the Braves one of those teams? They're now 10.5 behind the Phillies. I don't personally think the Braves are quite as good, but that jury's still out. And I don't have the questions about the Phillies that I have about the Braves. So, as always, so much of this is going to be about health, matchups in October, who makes the best deals in July. But I feel like looking at the Phillies, this is a team that could win the World Series. Do you agree?
I absolutely do, and I have for the past couple seasons. And while some in the fan base waver on that, you can only trust what's right in front of your eyes. So, Jayson, we appreciate you helping us make sense of this great start for the Phillies and the other topics around them. And we will be talking to you again down the line. Thanks for your time as always, man.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Jayson.
Hey, I want to thank you guys for watching, listening in. I want you to like, subscribe, do what you have to do to kind of stay on focus with us. Also, we also have plenty of other content that goes on here on YouTube. So go to that, like that, subscribe to that. And also you can catch us on the afternoon show, 2 to 6, Monday through Friday, 97.5 The Fanatic, 97.5thefanatic.com, and NBC Sports Philadelphia.